Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from. Hey guys, so as you know, as you can see from the screen, we're doing part A and part C. And we're going to start with part A. So strategies. As you guys know, I'm sure, you have 30 seconds, don't you, to read ahead for each part A, because we have two part A's, don't we? And there's 12 questions for each part. So you've only got 30 seconds to read the questions in the gap. It's not a long time, but, you know, use that time wisely, right? You can just very quickly read the questions and underline the keywords, right? Especially before and after each gap, right? But the keywords as well that don't necessarily have a gap with the bullet point, you know, just to keep you focused. Because one of the biggest issues with the listening part A and B and C is that you can get lost, right? More with A and C, to be fair. With B, it's not too bad, right? Because it's separate audios. But for part A and part C, it is easy to get lost, isn't it? So underlining those words can just help you. You know, you hear a word that's either that word or a synonym, which is quite likely. And then you say, oh, that's where we are. And then you're not lost anymore, right? Of course, there are subheadings with the listening part A. Always highlight them, guys. Even though they're right there on the left-hand side, I feel like it's easy to miss them, you know, so highlight them because they are providing the structure for the listening. So that helps you, you know, to focus and makes you less likely to get lost as well. And this is the pretty typical structure here, as you can see on the left. You know, just when a patient goes to a GP, normally, typically, what's the order of the conversation? Maybe there will be a bit on medical history, then the patient's current symptoms, then they might be given a diagnosis and told about the treatment options, right? So those are typical subheadings, and the audio will go in the same order as the questions, which is very useful too, right? 90% of the answers will come from the patient, so we need to be able to understand what the patient says, right? Especially with the use of synonyms. That's got to be one of the keys, right, guys? Build up a really good synonym library, especially for part A. Even little things like, you know, the patient might say problem, and maybe on the page it says issue. You know, any synonyms like that, like build up that vocabulary bank, if you like. Prediction, if you're not new, you will have predicted with me before, and I'm sure you'll agree that prediction can be very helpful, especially for part A, right? Because normally we can predict like one or two of the gaps, right? Using your knowledge as a health professional, you can say, you know, imagine you're reading something like patient's partner suspected and phoned an ambulance, you know, and you can sort of think, okay, well, you guys can tell me now, what are the typical reasons that you might phone an ambulance? What do you think? Okay, exactly, right? So well, yeah, with dizziness, I suppose if it's really bad, right? Yeah, maybe they collapsed, maybe they had a myocardial infarction, exactly, chest pain, right? So you can predict, right? You could say, for example, something very typical, myocardial infarction, or the common term, because remember, it's going to be what the patient says, most likely. So what's the common term for myocardial infarction? A heart attack, right? Exactly. So you could predict heart attack. Someone there said stroke. You know, those are two big ones, right? That if the patient has the symptoms that seem to indicate those, of course, going to call an ambulance. Of course, as Gaurav says, any emergency really, but you can predict the most typical ones, can't you? Seizure, yeah, right? So prediction's very helpful. Anaphylactic shock, true, Daniela, yeah. Yeah, a symptom would be chest pain, exactly. And what would be the condition that they're worried about? Probably a heart attack, right? Yeah. Okay, now if you decide to change your answer for whatever reason, just cross it out and write the correct word. You don't need to use an eraser. A human will correct your part A, so they will see that you've crossed out an answer and have written a different one, right? So do that. Remember, it's all about speed and time. If you miss an answer, guess. You know, you either get 1 point or 0 points. There's no negative marking. Right, 90% of the answers come from the patient. So that's a good thing to think about, guys. You think about what language will patients use? You know, the things that the average person would typically be worried about, for example, with an ambulance, the two top ones, I think. But you guys can tell me if you think something else. For me, I think it would be stroke and heart attack, right? So if I was predicting that gap I talked about a little while ago, I would say, okay, stroke, heart attack. But remember, it's going to be something that the patient says. So don't predict a super technical term, because they're probably not going to say that, you know. All right. So this is our part A. But before we do the listening, we are going to do a little bit of analysis. In the exam, you do only have 30 seconds, of course, but we're going to do a little bit of skill building, and then we'll give the listening a go. So we're going to hear a pulmonologist talking to Robert Miller. All right. So you see the word pulmonologist, right? What does a pulmonologist specialize in? The lungs, exactly, right? So you can immediately start thinking, okay, we're focusing on the lungs here. So then, as I said, we're going to highlight the subheadings, right? Here we've got medical history. Then we've got background details. Then a little bit more medical history, previous tests, and future actions. So focusing on medical history, right? And the subheadings are also useful because we know this sounds really obvious, but we know that all the information under that subheading is about the subheading. And you're thinking, obviously, but that's helpful for prediction. You know what I mean? Imagine the subheading said, dermatological issues, right? You know that all the bullet points are going to be connected to the skin, right? It helps narrow it down a little bit. So we just got medical history here, general medical history. So we've got tiredness, all right, but the patient might not say, you know, tiredness. What might they say instead of tiredness? Even just the adjective. What's the adjective? Because tiredness is the noun, isn't it? Exactly. He might just say, I'm tired, I feel tired, fatigued, indeed. Less common, but I have heard it in listenings. Exhausted, yeah. Run down, maybe, Gaurav, but then run down is more when you feel a bit ill, a bit run down. Yeah, exactly. Have no energy. Yeah. Okay. So then we've got our first gap here. Persistent cough. Okay. What do we mean by persistent? First of all, constant. Exactly. Yeah, continuous, doesn't stop. Right. These are things we need to be thinking about, guys, because the patient's probably not going to say, I have a persistent cough. Right. They're going to use a synonym, as you guys are saying. It's continuous. It's there all the time. Exactly. Okay. Now we're going to predict, as you guys are saying there. So it's an adjective, isn't it? And you guys are saying, okay, it's most likely dry, wet, productive. I think those are the three words that I got from you guys there. And I think those are pretty good predictions, right? Those are very common adjectives that go with cough. So you think about those, right? Because in the exam, 30 seconds, you're not going to have time to write down your predictions, but it can be enough just to think about them. Okay, SOB, what is SOB? Shortness of breath, very good. And now we're on to weight loss. Weight loss described as in nature. Okay, what type of word do you think is going to go here in number 2? Noun, adjective, adverb, verb. When it's described as, it's going to be an adjective, isn't it? Here it's probably going to be an adjective, isn't it? With descriptions, we use adjectives, don't we? That's true, Danielle. It could be an ing, couldn't it? Yeah. Okay, but what do you think, guys? Weight loss. What are typical words that we use to describe weight loss then? What do you think? So Gaurav says gradual. Yeah. Any other ways to describe weight loss? Sudden. Yeah, the opposite there. Abrupt. Although abrupt weight loss, not the most common collocation, eh? Maybe like, what's the opposite of gradual? Because gradual is kind of slow, isn't it? You think there'll be a comparison, Daniela? Maybe. Well, Gaurav, it could be described as intermittent. Yeah, intermittent weight loss, maybe. Moderate, yeah. Remember, guys, it's what the patient's going to say, isn't it? Okay. Fingertips appear. What might patients say about fingertips? Soft, yeah. Pale, scaly, brittle. Now, remember, we're not talking about the nails, actually, guys. Yeah, maybe we're getting a bit confused here. The fingertips, yeah. The nails is the next one. Yeah, exactly. They might be numb, thinking about circulation, for example. Swollen, dark, yeah, bigger. Fragile would be nails again. I feel like what you guys are saying there, maybe soft would be more nails, fragile, brittle. I think those would be good predictions for number 4. Any other predictions for number 4? Oh, painful's a good one for number 3, Martha. Yeah, fingertips appear painful. Although appear painful, no, not with appear. Maybe fingertips are painful. And then nails, any other adjectives with nails? But it's feel, so it's going to be an adjective, right? Feel soft, feel tender. I don't know if I'd say tender. Soft, yeah. Nails, I don't know if I'd say my nails feel painful. Guys, it's feel. Think about that. Yeah. Soft, hard, I think is probably not a bad thing, right? If your nails feel hard, that's the sign they're healthy, right? Remember, these are symptoms. So it's going to be things that are not good, right? So yeah, as you guys are saying, soft, brittle, that sort of thing. Okay. Background details. Okay, number 5 then, previously employed as a, who knows exactly, as Gareth says, any profession, right? We don't know what his profession is or was because it's previously. Okay, but do be careful because we've got previously and we've got now. So we're going to have to make sure we don't get those mixed up when we listen. But yeah, you can predict if you want, guys, but I feel like it could be literally any profession. So, and we haven't been given any clues from the symptoms or anything like that. So I think I would just not worry about predicting for 5 and 6. Okay, and they might not say previously employed. What typical words might you hear related to the word employed? Exactly, like I worked as, now I work as. Yeah, job, exactly. Work and job would be the most common words, wouldn't they? Or I was hired as. Yeah, that's true. Less common, but possible. All right, no longer able to play golf. Guys, what keywords would you highlight for this one? Now, I know there's no gaps, but this is in case we're lost in part A, right? And we want to quickly find our place again. What would you highlight from no longer able to play golf? Golf is the super keyword there, isn't it? Voila, exactly. When you hear the word golf, you can say, okay, the next answer that's coming is number 7. And keeps pigeons as a hobby. Maybe just pigeons, right? And then when you hear the word pigeons, you're like, okay, definitely know where we are. Yeah, I think pigeons is the key, isn't it? Or hobby, yeah, you could say hobby. They might use a synonym of hobby. All right then, guys, I think we're ready to go.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Now, looking at your notes, I see you've been having a few problems recently. Could you tell me a little about what's been happening in your own words?
Well, yeah, it's a combination of things, really. To kick off, I feel pretty tired most of the time. Just haven't got the energy I used to have.
Right.
And I've got this cough. It's there all the time, and it feels dry. I mean, I'm not coughing up phlegm or blood or anything like that. But the worst thing, which really bothers me, is that I'm so short of breath. Even if I'm just getting dressed in the morning or going up a few steps, I have to stop because I get breathless so quickly. And I've lost quite a bit of weight, too. I mean, I didn't notice at first because it was very gradual, but all in all, I'm about 10 kilos lighter than I was 6 months ago.
Right.
I've not been dieting or anything. I love my food.
Okay. And, well, have you noticed anything else?
Yeah, just take a look at my fingers. The tips look swollen, don't they? And it's the same with my toes, which are bulging out at the end, too. It's weird. And my nails, I don't understand it. They've become soft. They're not hard like they used to be. Look.
Okay. I see what you mean. And tell me a little about yourself. What you do for a living.
Well, till recently, I worked as a farm laborer. Did it for about 20 years in total. It was hard, physical graft, and it finally got to the stage where I just couldn't cope with it anymore.
Right.
It really took it out of me. So this last couple of years, I've been a security guard, working nights at a local DIY warehouse. It's a bit boring, and the late shifts took a bit of getting used to, but it's okay.
And, are you finding it less physically demanding?
That's right. I just haven't got the stamina now for anything else. In fact, I've even had to give up my golf. Can't manage it anymore. Any spare time now goes on looking after my pigeons. I've done that since I was a teenager.
All right. Now, please, we'll do one answer at a time. Yes, so Daniela says it wasn't too bad. Okay. How do we feel about this listening? You wish this was the real exam? Fair. Yes. Okay, so what about number one then, guys? All right, yes, okay. Number one was dry, so well done. Most of you did predict that. Good. Number two, yeah, that was predicted as well, wasn't it? Gradual or very gradual, but gradual is the key there. Three. Now you've actually got two options here. You can put swollen or bulging, because he did say like my toes are bulging too, but in the sense of like it could have been my toes are bulging in addition to my fingers bulging, you know, so it could have been swollen or bulging, but don't worry, only one word is essential, okay? So if you've written swollen, perfect. If you've written bulging, perfect, okay? All right, number four, nails feel relatively, yeah, again predicted, wasn't it? Soft. Five, now we need two words for number five. Daniela's got it, well done. And okay, some of you have got it. Guys, you need to be really strict with this one, okay? You need the word farm, and with labourer, you need ER at the end, okay? Because labour without ER is not the job. You know, it's not the profession, okay? So you need to have farm labourer. Alrighty, number six then. What was number six? Now employed as, yeah, a security guard. You can have the word night as well, but security guard would be the essential. Okay, well, as always, I'll let you know when the video is available. All right, everyone, bye-bye. Take care.